incredible career spans different industries and innovations. What inspired you to focus on publishing?
Hello, Lily. Don't raise expectations too high. I mean, it's been a fun career and a multifaceted one, and I've enjoyed it, and those are all good things about it. Um, I think what inspired me to get involved with publishing is kind of almost one of the first things that got me interested um, in careers was when I was at school. I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot of stories. I'd try to win the English prize for essays and stuff. Um, and I was always very hopeful that I'd become a writer, but for whatever reason, my career took a more corporate path than that. I've returned to writing more recently. So it's kind of a personal interest always in the world of literature and books. And then the thing that I suppose has characterized my career without wanting to be self-aggrandizing or congratulatory about it is that I'm sort of a pattern breaker. Whenever there's kind of a status quo, I have found myself changing the way it works in some way. And I think around publishing, there has been a very long challenge of discoverability. And I think being able to crack the code of discoverability and change the way that works has drawn me to it because that is some of what I can do, I think. And so I think maybe it's just a marriage of that very early love of books and writing and a business opportunity that we saw.
Sounds amazing. And how did your experiences in your early career shape the ways that you approach your work today?
Um, I think it is what I described, that kind of pattern breaking, that mold breaking. It's not that, I'm an iconoclast. It's not quite as grand as that. But finding different ways to do things, sometimes more efficient, sometimes more effective, sometimes novel. Um, I think I did that through a market research career where I helped brands to find innovative ways to present themselves and to connect with consumers. I then started several brands of my own in whiskey, music, and food, and indeed published a book. And again, those were all slightly different. The whiskey came in a different shaped bottle that always kind of stood out because it was a bit skew-if. Live life at a tilt, we talked about, and the bottle was at a tilt. You know, there've always been kind of characteristic little signals that our instinct, and my instinct in particular, is to try and find a new angle on things. And I think that's the way we're approaching publishing too.
You just mentioned that you are the author of a book, and your book, Shimmer Don't Shake, discuss the integration of AI and publishing. How do you see AI transforming the publishing landscape over the next few years?
The way I'm seeing it is that we're on a journey of three E's. So we're currently very focused on employing AI to increase corporate efficiency. That's the first E. How can we make rights work more efficiently? Can we qualify manuscripts more fairly? Can we make sure that our sustainable footprint is improved? All of these things AI can assist, and it's really kind of to do with corporate efficiency. The place we're going to, the next E, is creative emancipation. I think there's going to be through AI, not, and I'll say this really explicitly, not the writing of lots of books by AI. I think that's just boring. And it's AI is made to be anodyne and to be harmless and to be modest in the way that it talks. So, whatever it writes is pretty boring. But instead to liberate perhaps new art forms. So I work with a lot of Gen Z people, and they're characterized, people say, and they get frustrated with it by, a lack of commitment to careers or to, you know, to really believing in any particular corporate structures and so on. But actually, I think Gen Z is full of creativity, and it just is quite hard to articulate it or to manifest it to the rest of society. So can I see, and this is a fairly silly example of it, but it's the sort of thing that may happen. Can I see a Gen Zer mashing up, to use an old phrase, a video game with a cryptocurrency, with a bit of music, with a bit of literature, into a new art form as yet undefined? Yes, I can. And will AI assist in that coming to fruition? Absolutely. Probably couldn't do it without it. So I think creative emancipation is a really exciting part of what AI will bring to the creative industry. Just the the encouragement of new art forms, but also I would contend that if there's 8 billion people alive on Earth today, there are probably 8 billion, sorry, creatives as well. It's just that they don't have means of expression. And if AI can somehow assist them in expressing that, again, not explicitly writing, but showing them ways in which they can articulate their thoughts or speak or, um, harness other creative forms to make their feelings and their insights, their creative sparks visible, I think that's great. And if you're wondering where the third E has gone, we went from efficiency to emancipation with increasing excitement. So a bit silly, but there you go.
And do you see AI revolutionizing book sales?
Revolutionizing is always a kind of pretty big claim, but I think, in some of the due diligence that we did as a business before entering publishing, and these numbers are always debatable. Um, But to put one number up there, it is said by many that there are about 100 million books published in English alone. Never mind Mandarin and Portuguese and Arabic and all the other things that they could be. And yet, only about 5% of those have ever been advertised. Now, advertising isn't the be all and end all of anything, but it is a form of bringing things to people's attention. And when you bring things to people's attention, you tend to lead to engagement, and engagement can lead to commercial interaction, which is a fancy term for they might buy it from you. So if you make a book visible to somebody and it somehow connects with them, they might actually purchase it. And that's got great benefits. The publisher makes more of their catalog, the author gets more reach and recognition and income, and the reader is matched to something that suits them better than just kind of blindly trying to find your way through 100 million books. So, can AI assist in discoverability and the matching of works of art, great pieces of writing, with audiences by understanding what the audience likes and what the book offers and somehow matchmaking them? Absolutely, yes, it can. So I think in that respect, AI can revolutionize book sales just by better matching pieces of work to mindsets that would welcome them.
Yeah. And AI is definitely becoming increasingly more prominent in things like content creation and marketing. How can authors and publishers maintain the authenticity and creativity that defines great literature?
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Um, I think there's some fairly simple, concrete, rudimentary things to do. Like if it's written by AI, have a note that says it's written by AI. If you've researched with AI, mention that you've, employed a bit of AI to do some of your research. There's no harm in doing that, and I think we should all just be without shame in doing so. It's a helpful thing, and whether you do it to kind of gather information or whether you do it, as I sometimes do, to help you form better arguments. Like when I write a regular column for the bookseller, every time I've completed it, I put it into an AI and I say, contradict me. And it tells me what an idiot I am and where my arguments are poor, where there's flaws in the thing. It's helpful. So I think kind of being open about the fact that you're employing or collaborating with or have an AI companion, whatever way you want to frame the relationship, is a helpful thing to do. But the other thing to kind of remember, perhaps, is that essentially AI is a prediction machine. And I think that one of the core definitions of creativity is unpredictability. When you read a great novel, it's that moment where you think, oh my God, I would never have thought of that. Or, you know, a scenario is described and brought to life in your mind in a way that you never could have anticipated. And you kind of wonder at that. That's creativity. Even something like a historical narrative. It's the surfacing of an insight about why this military group, overwhelmed another place and what the morals of the thing were or whatever. It's so often about surfacing the unpredictable. So if you've got a machine which is defined by predictability, and you've got on the other hand what we humans do, which is essentially to be a bit sort of wild and unpredictable, I don't see that AI is a great threat to the core creative outputs that great writers have.
Yeah. And obviously, some critics worry that AI might make publishing too similar. How does Shimmer help ensure that diverse and unique voices are still heard?
It's actually a sort of an accidental byproduct of our whole approach, but what we're finding is that we're really enabling a lot of more muted voices to be much more present. Um, for example, just to take one, the LGBTQ community is struggling to advertise its work on quite a lot of the major platforms now, uh, almost accidentally, because the platforms have said you may not target them. But that's your audience if you're writing as an LGBTQ author. You actually want those similar-minded people to be reading your work, but you can't target them. And AI is actually able to help you connect in a less obvious way by the sorts of things that you're interested in rather than your identity. I think it also so that's one way that we're kind of helping to bring the mute a new voice, if you like. And I think the other thing is that by almost the very definition that we bring into the light things which are hidden, which can't have a lot of human capital expended on them, which can't have marketing campaigns in the traditional form invested in them. They tend to languish in the dark, those works. And by having low cost, high impact ways of surfacing them with automated advertising, you can revivify some of those voices that have, been lying quiet for too long. So quite a lot of works which haven't gone anywhere for a while are being brought back into public attention by our automated advertising.
And traditional book promotion does have its limitations. How do you feel that AI-driven strategies enhance the connection between books and their target audiences?
Well, I mean, when I talk about AI, I'm usually thinking about the way that we are deploying AI because it's what I know most about. And what we do is almost a reverse discoverability process. So typically, in almost every industry, and also in publishing, you tend to think of, well, do we have a book for a 25 to 40-year-old first-time mother who lives, rurally rather than in an urban setting? And you kind of define a few demographic and psychographic things, and you say, right, well, here's a sort of book for her. We're kind of not doing that. We're not doing the psychographic, well, we're not doing the demographic part at all. We're almost saying that the book is our customer. So we start by reading entirely the book and understanding what we call as book DNA, which is kind of a structural analysis. It might be a story about mackerel fishing in Sweden, but it's also a psychological analysis. Because when I said to you, mackerel fishing in Sweden, you had a picture of that, didn't you? We can't kind of help ourselves. We kind of picture things. But if I tell you the book is also about melancholy, depression, and cruelty, you're varying your pictures. They're getting a bit darker. They're getting a bit sort of deeper. And if I say, but also in that book, there are themes of family loyalty and ambition to leave coastal living and live in a big city. This book has become much more multifaceted in your mind. And that's what we do. We analyze the book DNA to find out all of the themes that are there. And then through psychologically themed advertising, we manifest those different aspects of the book that are going to be catchy emotionally and hook people. And then because we know that we're looking for people who might be interested in mackerel fishing, Sweden, melancholy, depression, cruelty, ambition, coastal, blah, blah, we go and we find those sorts of people on the various platforms that aggregate audiences, whether it's Meta or Google or LinkedIn or Pinterest or something else. And so we can match the book to the people that enjoy those themes. And that results, thankfully, in incredibly high rates of people engaging with the advertising and then going through a conversion page to say, yep, that's exactly what I was looking for. I'll buy it. So I think that's a change that AI has brought to book promotion. It's the reverse discoverability where the book goes and finds its audience rather than the other way around.
Yeah. And finally, what ethical guidelines do you feel are necessary for the publishing industry to consider when integrating AI into their processes to ensure fairness and transparency?
I think the really big picture is that we need to have a very robust and comprehensive system for recognizing authorship and remunerating it. So sometimes that's called copyright, sometimes that's called rights, but I just kind of think about it as recognition and remuneration. AI companies and all the models need content. They need more and more data to become better and better. And we want them to become better and better. We want them to be more robust, more dependable, to hallucinate less, to be our companions in executing a lot of things in our lives. So I think having a proper recognition and remuneration system is what's principally needed. There's some really interesting things happening. I mean, obviously, there are quite a few court cases going on about stolen copyright, which is obviously completely inappropriate, and that'll end up wherever it end up with, which I guess will be with payments of some sort. But I think outside of that kind of more adversarial relationship, there's also, licensing going on, one-to-one AI model to particular publisher. I think that'll become more collective gradually. And I think we're probably going to have systems where every time an author produces a piece of work, they can say yes or no as to whether it could be employed in AI training. And then it just flows through contractually to payments to the publisher, payments to the author, and the AI company gets higher quality content than it would otherwise. It's quite difficult, really. I think we should recognize that AI kind of arrived with a bang, and it's a very young industry commercially. So it wouldn't know how to have 10,000 conversations with 10,000 different publishers. And I think what we're doing now is facilitating the structures um, that have a much more collaborative approach to content reward, value reward, and AI ingestion of really good work. And I would just finish by saying that, it's a bit crude and a bit silly, but AI is what it eats, and we should feed it well. As long as it's recognized and rewarded properly, the more AI gets good stuff into it, the better for us all.